prediction video for UFC Fight Night Gaethje versus Vick. Let's start at the bottom. The first fight is Ronnie Yaya versus Luke Sanders. And to me, Luke Sanders is probably better overall, but I feel like the problem is he gives away a lot of shit. I feel like his defense overall isn't very good. I think Yaya will be able to take him to the ground eventually. And like I said, his defense overall isn't very good. His offense is really solid, but like I said, his last fight, he fought a guy he should have beat easy, but he kept getting clipped. And I mean, in his fight against Yuri Alcantara, he got caught in a submission, and I think that's just what's going to happen. I think sooner or later, Ronnie Yaya is going to pull this to the ground, and I think once he gets on top, he's going to win with a choke. So I got Ronnie Yaya winning by like either first or second round submission. Next is Drew Dober versus John Tuck. And to me, I feel like Drew Dober's is way better. I think his striking and overall wrestling game are better than Tuck's. I think Tuck only has the advantage in jiu-jitsu, and I feel like his conditioning is kind of shit. I feel like the only way Tuck can win is if he gets his, like Drew Dober's back in the first round, and I just don't see that happening. I think Drew Dober's going to be able to keep this on the feet, tire Tuck out, and probably win by third round TKO, or at least win a 29-28 decision. So I got Drew Dober winning. Next, we got Joanne Calderwood versus Carlinda Freire, and to me, this is just two strikers, and I think Joanna's the much better one. Neither one of these chicks is great grapplers, and like I said, I just think Joanna's the better striker, so I'm leaning with Joanna. Next, we got Mickey Gall versus George Sullivan, and I mean, George Sullivan's really weird because I feel like he's already fought a guy much better than Mickey Gall. Like, people have Mickey Gall just obliterating George Sullivan, and I don't see that happening. I feel like, George Sullivan's record in the UFC is like 4-3 or something like that, and he already fought a really high-level jiu-jitsu black belt, who, in my opinion, is much better than Mickey Gall. And, I mean, he was able to stuff his takedowns, and when it did go to the ground, he was able to kind of work his way back up. And Mickey Gall's striking technique is just really kind of shit, in my opinion, and I think George Sullivan's going to be able to capitalize. And I think George Sullivan's going to win by first-round KO. Like I said, I just think Mickey Gall's striking's not that great, and I don't think his grappling's good enough to just obliterate Sullivan. So, like I said, I got Sullivan by first-round KO. Next, we got Andrew Sanchez versus Marcus Perez, and I feel like Andrew Sanchez is better everywhere, but his conditioning is really shitty, and I think that's what Marcus Perez is going to be looking for. I think this is going to be a lot like Andrew Sanchez's fight with, what's his face? Anthony Smith. I think he's going to be winning the whole fight until he starts to gas, and I think Marcus Perez is going to just light him up in the third. Andrew Sanchez's last couple of fights were like that. He was winning the whole fight, and in the third round, he was so tired he just got knocked out. And I think that's what's going to happen in this fight. I think he wins the first 2 rounds. Marcus Perez has just got the much better conditioning, and I think he starts to swarm and kick the crap out of him in the third. So I got Perez by third round TKO. Next, we got Yuri Alcantara versus Corey Sandhagen, and to me, Corey's a good fighter overall, but I think Yuri's just better everywhere. I think Yuri is striking a little bit better, and his jiu-jitsu is a little bit better. Corey's got good fundamental boxing, but I just think Yuri's faster and has more power. So I'm leaning towards Yuri, especially if this goes to the ground. I think Yuri submits him 9 times out of 10 if this hits the ground. So I'm leaning towards Yuri. I say he wins by submission, most likely in the first or second round. Next, we got James Krause versus Warley Alvarez, and I just feel like neither of these guys have great conditioning, but to me, Warley has definitely improved on it. I feel like we saw in his last 2 fights, he went pretty much the distance. In the first one and then the second one, he looked really solid conditioning-wise after 2 pretty hard-fought rounds. And the other guy, his eye swelled up and he won by TKO. To me, James Krause in his last 2 fights, he looked really tired at the end, and he kind of just survived. I feel like I said, I think Warley's the better striker and the better wrestler overall. James Krause is probably the better grappler once it hits the ground overall, but I just don't see that happening. I think Warley will be able to continuously get back to his feet even if it does get to the ground and just outstrike him for 3 rounds. And I just got Warley winning by decision. Next is Eric Anders versus Tim Williams. And to me, Tim Williams is a really fun fighter. He's a really good fighter, but he's just kind of not UFC level. He's one of those guys that's this close. If this is the UFC level, he's right there. He's got skills everywhere, but he's just not quite good enough. I feel like Eric Anders is the better wrestler and the better striker in this fight. And I think that we're going to see him just be aggressive like he usually is. Probably pin Williams against the fence and then just start unloading shots there. And I think Eric Anders is going to win by first round KO. I just think he's faster, stronger, more athletic, and all that. So I got Eric Anders winning by KO. Next, we got John Moraga versus Devinson Fernando. And this fight is super close. I feel like these guys have the exact same style. John Moraga's been looking better in every fight. Devison's biggest weakness is his takedown defense. I feel like John Moraga's got really good wrestling, and he could take advantage of that. But these guys both have really good jiu-jitsu. They both have really good striking. I wouldn't be surprised if this fight goes either way, but I'm leaning towards Moraga solely because his wrestling is good. And Devison, you know, he's a lot like Yuri Alcantara, who's got great skills everywhere, but the wrestling's always been his biggest weakness. And I feel like if John Moraga can hit the takedowns when he needs to, he can edge out a close decision. And this is what I see happening. I think this fight will be super close, and I think it will be a split decision, but I think Moraga will just hit the takedowns when he needs them, and he'll win and that's how he'll get the points to win. Next, we got Jake Allenberger versus Brian Barberina, and I don't know how Jake Allenberger's still here. I feel like he's gone like 1-6 in his last 7. I think Brian Barberina is the much younger, much, you know, bigger up-and-comer. I think Jake Allenberger, you know, his conditioning and his striking overall haven't been looking as good. I think that Brian Barberina is just going to weather whatever big shots he'll throw early and then just slowly hit him to the body and hit him to the head and probably win by either late first or mid-second round KO. Like I said, I just think this is an easy fight for Brian Barberina. I think his takedown defense and his striking are better than Jake's at this point. And I think he's just going to overwhelm him the longer the fight goes on. Unless Jake catches him in the first round with like a big body kick or head kick like he did to Matt Brown, I think Brian Barberina is just going to finish him pretty easily. Next, we got Courtney Casey versus Angela Hill. And to me, I feel like, you know, these chicks are probably about even striking-wise, but Courtney Casey is just much bigger in my opinion. And her jiu-jitsu is like much better. I think that, you know, if Courtney Casey can just mix in those takedowns with the striking, I think that she's going to eventually either just grind out Angela Hill or win by submission with like a rear naked choke or armbar. Like I said, I think Courtney Casey is just much more well-rounded. Angela Hill's probably better striking technically, but Courtney Casey hits harder. But like I said, I don't think that's going to matter. If Courtney Casey can just time those takedowns right and get it to the ground, she should be able to dominate this fight. I think she's much better on the ground. I think she should be able to win a pretty easy decision as long as she, you know, like I said, gets to the ground when she needs to and just uses her jiu-jitsu correctly. So I got Courtney Casey winning by, like I said, most likely rear naked choke or armbar in like the second round. Next, we got Michael Johnson versus Andre Fili, and this fight kind of depends if Fili wants to use his wrestling. If Fili uses his wrestling a lot, I think he can win the decision. But the problem with Fili is he doesn't always do that, and I think he's going to want to strike with Johnson. And I think that, you know, Michael Johnson's biggest weakness is his ability to get back up after he gets taken down isn't very good. But, like I said, I just feel like this is going to be a striking fight. And if it's just a straight striking fight for 3 rounds, I'm leaning towards Johnson. And I think this will be a close back-and-forth fight, but I think it'll be kind of like when Michael Johnson fought Tony Ferguson. He's just going to be a little bit faster, and he's just going to be able to land a little bit more throughout the fight. And I think Johnson's going to just edge out every round and win by decision. Unless Fili uses his wrestling intelligently, then I could see Fili taking it. But I feel like Fili doesn't do that a lot of the time. He doesn't use his wrestling as much as he should, and I think that's just going to happen in this fight. I don't think he's going to use his wrestling enough, and Michael Johnson's just going to edge out the rounds with striking and win a 30-27 decision. Finally, we got Justin Gaethje versus James Vick, and this all depends on who can keep the space. James Vick is obviously much longer and good at striking from the outside, and Justin Gaethje is more short and compact. And, you know, he said he's going to use his wrestling, and I think that that's smart. I think that if he can get Vick to the ground and kind of beat him up there, that'd be smart. I also feel like Vick, you know, this is the perfect guy to use those leg kicks against because he's got really skinny legs, and I think that he doesn't have enough padding to, you know, absorb the leg kicks as well. Like I said, though, if James Vick can stay on the outside, I could see him picking apart Justin Gaethje for like 5 rounds, but I just don't see that happening. I think this fight's going to be in close, and, you know, if Vick could angle out and get that punch like how he did against Marco Polo's Reyes, he could win by knockout, and I think this is going to happen. I think this fight's going to be about 2 rounds, and I think whoever can just do more damage in that time is probably going to win by knockout. And I'm leaning towards Gaethje. I think if he mixes in his wrestling to kind of keep James Vick, you know, not just let him think it's going to be a straight striking fight, then I think, you know, Justin Gaethje could even win by ground and pound, but I think he mixes in the leg kicks and the body shots and all that like how he usually does, and eventually he'll win by like late second KO. But this fight is really close. Like I said, it's all about who can keep that distance. If Justin Gaethje can keep it close, he's going to win. If James Vick can stay on the outside, he's probably going to win. But I'm leaning towards Gaethje. I think he mixes in his wrestling, gets to the ground, and like I said, mixes up his standing attack and just throws off Vick's game and wins by TKO. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe.